Ladies, gentlemen, and all you beautiful people in between, my name is Dick Slater, and welcome back to the Uma Musume Breakdown series, where I go over every single piece of Uma Musume media, to not only rank them, but go over all the hidden references, secrets, trivia, and compare the races to their real-life counterparts. Links to the playlist will be in the description. Today we're here to cover the Uma Musume movies, Road to the Top and its sequel, Beginning of a New Era. So let's dive right in. Road to the Top premiered on April 2023 as a 4-episode original web animation. It released on the PackTube channel and is fully available to watch for free here on YouTube. Subtitles included. I'll in fact leave a link in the description for you to watch it. However, a month later in May, a compilation movie was released, combining all 4 episodes into a seamless experience. Seeing as I need a theme for this video, it is what I'll be using as a basis. It starts off by showing us the Statue of Liberty, as with the Moai statues of Season 3. This isn't the one from New York, but it's actually a replica located in Tokyo, taking into consideration that the start of this movie takes place in 1999. This specific replica is the one from Ilocenia. It was given by the French to the Japanese for a temporary period, spanning from April 1998 to May 1999. Because of its popularity, however, a smaller statue was built on the same spot in the year 2000. Looking closely at the stone tablet, it reads February 24th, 2021, the release date of the Uma Musume game. We jump straight into the 1999 Yayo show, and...
Whoa, back it up there, Chauncey.
Who is this? Where my green woman at? Where's Misato?
Is she alright?
Yeah, so, in these 2 movies, Misato Akasaka is replaced by Nana Izumoto. I have no idea who this is, her name isn't even a pun. Surprising, since the series up until this point has had a very consistent track record of having Akasaka be the main announcer, and she'll return to her role as announcer after these movies. What's more confusing is that Izumoto is still joined by Masa Yamamoto, former baseball player and co-host of Season 3. If anyone has an explanation on why the announcer was replaced, please leave a comment. I could only assume that it was scheduling conflicts with the voice actress or something. Back to the race, and... damn! The animation is a massive step up compared to the main series. This isn't simply a difference of TV anime to an OVA or movie. This is next level. And the reason is that from Road to the Top and onwards, Cygames will handle all animation in-house. Basically, this is that sweet gacha money coming into play. Not only is the animation affected by this, but the direction of the races themselves. We're introduced to 2 of our central protagonists, Admire Vega and the race winner, Narita Top Pro, whom I'll be referring to by the respective nicknames, Ayabe and NTR. You know what, maybe not. The opening starts, and it displays the race courses for Nakayama, Tokyo, and Kyoto, the courses in which the 3 classic races are held. Top Road is straighting, and we're shown that she struggles with turning corners. This is reflective of the real-life horse's racing style. One thing about this scene I noticed was that in the movie version, it was missing the music. Here, compare it to the YouTube release. This happens sparsely in the movie release, but it isn't very intrusive, as the music comes back in the next scene. Top Road is the class president, and seems pretty diligent in helping her classmates. This is reflective of her real-life jockey, Kunihiko Watanabe, who is the head of the jockey's dormitory and Rito Training Center. Top Road doesn't realize that she was injured, until Ayabe points it out. The real Top Road was in fact very oblivious to his own injuries, even at times suffering minor dislocations, which he fixed back himself somehow. We see Top Road's trainer, Okita, having a flashback, where we actually get to see Top Road's biological father, and his face isn't obscured at all, something that the series usually tries to hide for family members of the Horse Girls. We're introduced to Tiamapra-O right after she wins the 1999 Mainichi High, and we're shown that seemingly she didn't believe that she'd win. I mentioned this in my Horse Lore Part 1 video. Tiamapra-O in Musume is based on the real-life jockey Ryuji Wada. However, I vastly underestimated by how much this was the case. Tiamapra-O's entire personality and appearance is based on Ryuji Wada. Wada was still a new jockey at the time. He never anticipated that he would find success, especially not as early as he did with Oprah-O. Her confident attitude hiding a hard-working interior was reflective of this. It was at times that people thought that Wada was figuratively being carried by Oprah-O, seeing as after the horse's retirement, it would take Wada a long time to gain another G1 victory. We also see Opera training alongside Meisho Dodo. There's so much for me to say about Meisho Dodo and his relationship with TM Opera, to the point I think I'd rather save it for a separate video. However, it should be noted that Meisho Dodo is an Irish horse, and thus he was not allowed to participate in the classic races at the time. TM Opera was on the verge of missing that chance as well, if it had not been for the Oguri Cap rule, which allows horses to be registered for the classic races late, if they pay an additional fee. And Opera was the first horse to race in the classics using this rule. As TM Opera was injured at the time, his team didn't expect him to be able to compete. However, they were advised to do so once Oguri Cap's trainer stepped in. Because of this, it seems that Opera looks up to Oguri Cap and approaches her during lunch. She seems to hold a great deal of respect towards her, as Ryuji Wada wanted to become a jockey, specifically because he had seen Oguri Cap's races. Oguri Cap will continue to appear in the background and spectate Opera-O's races. She will also be seen next to Meisho Dodo, as they're both friends of Opera-O, and the real-life counterparts couldn't compete in the classics. Ayabe is shown with her roommate, Kuren-chan. As Ayabe leaves, sad music plays. Once again, this track is absent from the movie version. However, this time it definitely messed up the pacing, as Kuren-chan spends an awkwardly long time staring at the camera.
先に寝てて。
Feels pretty weird with that music, which comes back immediately in 15 seconds. Strange choice right there. Our three main characters finally come face to face in the 1999 Satsuki show. It's noteworthy that the rivalry between Opera-O and Top Road was stronger in real life, as the two jockeys, Watanabe and Wada, were both lifelong childhood friends. Meisho Dodo is shown spectating the race, an impossibility, as he was running in a different race at this time. We're shown that only 17 girls are racing. The 18th racer, Wonderfang, was pulled from the race after he had injured himself on the first gate, despite rain being a really unfavorable condition for her. Top Road has a promise to fulfill, but unfortunately, TM Opera-O has got an aura farm, and so she obliterates the competition. After her defeat, Admire Vega states that she was in poor condition leading up to the race, which was the official reasoning given by his real-life trainer for his performance. Something that always affected Admire Vega's running condition is that he was born with an inherited genetic defect that made his legs bend inward, which caused him issues in his career. TM Opera-O trains with Meisho Dodo and tells Dodo that one day shall bask in the spotlight, as Dodo will be the first horse to defeat Opera-O after his 6 G1 victory streak. Kuren-chan discovers that Ayabe went off camping. In the corner, we see an Irish Oyama brand, high-power single nozzle, FKH1 futon dryer. I know you're already soy-facing by this point, but it gets better. 2 weeks after the airing of the episode, Irish Oyama actually sent one of these to Hitomi Sasaki, Admire Vega's voice actress. I think it's time to talk about Ayabe's sister. She's mentioned her a couple times, but it's here where we get to see the significance of this character. Ayabe lets the audience know that she had an unborn twin sister, and that only one of them would get to survive, and that it was merely by chance that she was the one that ended up doing so. This is not how it went down. Killing Admire Vega's brother was an act of choice by the owners, as twins were seen as weak and unfit for racing, due to the chance that they would come out underdeveloped or cause issues for the mother. And so, Admire Vega was the survivor out of the two, and Uma Musume just left her with a bit of a complex, that she has to win for the sake of her sister. It also gave her schizophrenia or something because she camps alone, yet pours 2 cups and starts talking to the air. Like a freak! Narita Top Road is seen walking through the neighborhood market, and many of the people there showed their support. Unlike Kyoto Black, there's some basis to this. No matter how poorly Top Road performed, he would always see massive amounts of support, and consistently placed within the top 5 favorites in ranking. This is due to the fact he was a very good-looking horse, and was seen as majestic to the comparatively ugly horses he was surrounded with, such as TM Opera-O, who was so ugly that spectators would actually throw rocks at him, causing a lifelong ban from visits. So when Opera-O shows up and tells Top Road and Ayabe that they should be rivals, Ayabe's all like,
Nah, I'm nothing like y'all.
why'd I do a goblin laugh? It's the 1999 Japanese Derby. Before entering the gate, Opera-O gives a dramatic speech to her fellow racers, something Ryuji Wada would do to ease his nerves before a race. Nautical Tool, as stand-in for Northern Captain, falls behind due to a late start. Rice Shower states that Opera-O has a good mark for Top Road to follow, something to be expected, as Rice Shower's entire career was revolved around choosing a good mark. Unfortunately for Top Road would spurt too early, making her do the same, which allowed all-star legend Yutaka Take to sweep in with Admire Vega and become the first jockey in history to win the Japanese Derby for 2 years in a row. Interestingly, Yutaka Take's jockey code in this race was 666. Admire Vega's last practice run before the race had a practice time of 66.6 seconds, and this was the 66th Japanese Derby, and it was also held on 6/6. Do what you will with this information. Top Road's crying face was drawn after her voice actress. The reason she cries is because Kunihiko Watanabe also cried after this race, as he did everything right, yet Yutaka Take did everything better. Okita says,
力は出し切った。よくやったぞ。
which is what Top Road's trainer said to Watanabe after the race.
勝てた私
Nigga, did I just catch you having fun?
For some reason, Admire Vega feels bad about winning, believing that she had abandoned her sister by enjoying the moment. It's summer camp. Okita is trying to get Top Road to relax after her loss. Everybody else is having fun, but Ayabe is mean to current chat, forcing her to drop her iPhone. Actually, no. If it was an iPhone, it would have shattered into a million pieces by now. What kind of phone even is that? Boost Mobile? Top Road takes a bath and Ayo! Top Road meets up with Haru Urara, who is sporting Carrot Man merch.
次は絶対勝てるよだからねおいしいラストおかわり
That clip had no significance. I just thought it was cute. Current Chan achieves full-scale narcissism by putting the selfie she just took as her phone background. She does show us that Ayabe is still training well past midnight, still haunted by her dead sister. Opera O's appearance with the sunglasses is based on this picture of Ryuji Wada, in which he was cosplaying Tsuyoshi Shinjo after he had lost a bet on a New Year's party. When Dodo is looking for a handkerchief, she tosses out a statue of a tanuki, a reference to Dodo befriending a tanuki which took refuge in the stable during a winter. Okito helps Top Road recover from her turmoil, from coaching for kids to giving her the talk, to even hosting a party, and this carrot merchant shows up again. I don't know why he looks like that, but this feels like something I should know the answer to. The ghost of Ayabe's sister appears. Before anything, I gotta ask.
Who let the dogs out?
I understand that they're trying to show her feet bent inward like Ayabe's real-life handicap, but come on, man! She very ominously tells Ayabe that she's gonna break her leg after the Kika show. Ayabe breaks into a laughing fit. Gone cuckoo, as they say. But let's take a look at the skies for a moment. As this is summer camp, we actually see the Summer Triangle constellation is above her, which is comprised of Altair, Deneb, and Vega, which admires Vega's mother, and by extension himself, were named after. In Chinese folklore, Altair and Vega are the stars representing the cowherd and the weaver girl, romantic lovers that got separated by the Milky Way. In a way, it could symbolize the separation of Ayabe and her sister. We're shown Top Road losing to Ayabe at an unnamed J2 race. This is the 1999 Kyoto Shimbun High, which at the time was a race taking place right after summer. However, it's likely not mentioned by name, as it has been moved to spring. So to avoid confusion, they refrain from name-dropping it. You may be wondering where Team Opera O is at this time. Well, we actually did see what she was doing. If you remember back in my Season 1 review, she was at the Kyoto Daishoten, which she tried to chase after Special Week, not realizing that she had gained weight, and was about to blunder that entire race. After their duel, Top Road approaches Ayabe, whose eyes glow blue like Sad's Undertale, usually a trademark of horses jockeyed by Hitoshi Matoba. However, this is not the case. As from debut to retirement, Admire Vega was jockeyed by Yutaka Take. The title for this episode is One Dream, a reference to the slogan on Top Road's poster. Opera O approaches Top Road, and they sit down to have a chat together, during which we get a cameo from Agnes on a Manhattan Cafe, the winners of the Satsuki show and Kika show respectively. This not only acts as foreshadowing for their importance in the sequel movie, but also the fact that they currently mirror Opera O and Top Road. Top Road approaches Ayabe, with Ayabe hesitant to interact because, as she puts it, whenever she gets close to someone, she starts losing sight of the star. Another piece of evidence hinting to the constellation theory. Despite Top Road's efforts, Ayabe still insists on rejecting her as a rival, which is why she tenses up when she meets her gaze before the race, prompting Opera O to do the funniest thing possible. Some confusion and misinformation surrounds the scene. Quite understandable, as considering the relationship, you would assume this is something that happened between Wada and Watanabe. But actually, it was Osumi Bright's jockey, Hirofumi Shi, who slapped Watanabe's ass. As the girls are entering the gates, the 3D models are in low resolution and are flickering in such an ugly way. It wasn't corrected in the movie version either. This is the first time I've seen something like this, where it feels like whoever rendered this had a pretty outdated graphics driver. It can spot Agnes Digital making an extremely minor cameo. Once again, it'd be impossible for her to actually be here, as Digital was in fact in a different race at the time. But the reason she's here is because Agnes Digital will later face off against and defeat Team Opera O. During the race, there were no frontrunners, which gave Top Road the opportunity to set the pace, making it very slow. Ryuji Wada was too focused on Admire Vega. Unbeknownst to him though, Admire Vega's health was failing and started falling behind. In the anime, we see Ayabe's sister one last time, who tells her that she should just have fun racing and not worry about her anymore, allowing Ayabe to internally accept Top Road's friendship and continue racing. Yeah, a bit late for that, mate. She's gotta retire after this. Wada's focus on Admire Vega led to Team Opera O sprinting way too late into the race, and ultimately losing to Top Road. This actually got him into a massive argument with the owner, who demanded Wada to be replaced. This was protested by Opera O's trainer, and thankfully, Wada continued to jockey for Opera O. 3 Golden Generation girls make a cameo, while King Halo and Special Week look shocked. Seiun Sky is smiling. This is because she had won this exact race the year prior. Narita Top Road takes the win as Okita name drops the title. Absolute cinema! And once again, this is a reference to that same JRA poster. Top Road raises her fist in the air just as Watanabe did. For both him and his horse, this is their first and last G1 title that they'll get in their lifetime. Fun fact, both him and Opera O were in the same Arima Keenan back at the end of Season 1, where Grass Wonder defeated Special Week. Mei Shurado says that she'll one day race alongside her, hinting at her appearance in the next movie. Ogre Cap offers her some more fried shrimp. She pulls out 8 sticks, in fact, which is the number of victories Opera O will achieve in the year 2000. I don't mention translation differences much, but this one was petty. Current Chan calls it Umsta. Meanwhile, the subtitles localize it as Umagram. Why even bother changing something like this? We get the finale winning live, and this thing is a lie. As Rapid Builder, a stand-in for Rascal Suzuka, placed 3rd, and Ayabe placed 6th. This is a scam! The Uma Pyoi Densetsu at the end credits is actually sung by our main characters this time. In the Pretty Derby series, it was just generic Souls of the Damned speaking over each other. And that's the end of the road for Road to the Top. Gotta say, it's absolutely a step up from Season 3. Well, it actually came out before, so technically, Season 3 is the step down. But regardless, this one was really fun. I found the story to be engaging and Narita Top Road to be a much more likable protagonist than Kida-san Black or Special Week. Especially so because it never felt like she took away the spotlight from Ayabe or Opera O, despite clearly being the main focus. I felt for her and her trainer Okita, doing your absolute best, and still losing simply because there's always someone outright better than you is a reality for many athletes. And I feel like this story handled it in a way that drove the message home, without pushing it too much or meandering on anything unimportant. Top Road also displays a much more tasteful usage of the whole neighborhood helper aspect. Firstly because it incorporates her being the class president into it, so we actually get to see her interact with her classmates and show that she goes all in all aspects of her life, and not simply one neighborhood market. It also made more sense, as it reflected the real horse having many fans, despite being rather unsuccessful. And the fact that up until the last episode, Top Road was an actual loser, unlike the 7 G1 winner, Kida-san Black. And her trainer was someone you can generally feel cares for her on a deeper level, rather than simply being someone that just wants her to succeed. He felt like a genuinely comforting figure to have around. Admire Vega was interesting, though had the strangest trajectory out of the 3 main characters. Her storyline had a really good first half in my opinion, but after she wins the derby, it got sort of confusing at points. It felt like she was a character who suffered from not having her own trainer, someone she can bounce off of and truly show how her mental spiral is taking a toll in her relationships. The closest we get for this is Current Chan, but she's just her roommate, and we never really see them interact too much or have a full conversation together. And just being someone's roommate was never made out to be a big deal with this franchise so far. Despite my overall opinion still being positive, I do believe she would have benefited from a little bit of extra screen time after her final race. The movie does add an extra scene between the three on the backstage before they're winning live, but I felt that was more for Opera O than Ayabe. Speaking of Opera O, despite having the smallest amount of screen time, she was absolutely the best character here, and I do feel like the fact that we don't see much of her behind the scenes or her trainer worked to her benefit. I believe she's a character that's best used in moderation. It's clear that the dramatic and confident attitude that she puts on is pretty much a front to hide her nervousness. However, this isn't explicitly pointed out or directly revealed in any way. It's shown through subtle body language and concept clues. She stole every scene that she was in, and it definitely made me regret not being able to pull her in-game. As I mentioned before, the animation was a massive improvement from the previous seasons, and it only gets better from here. The production quality went through the roof, as the pretty series was comparable to most others of its genre. Roared to the top, and the animations that follow are a step beyond. But with that, we're brought to the ranking. Really tough, isn't it? Man, all three of these main characters were good, but Ayabe feels like she's missing something. Just that one extra thing to flourish, enjoying the same tier as the other two. Oh, what's this? Well, would you look at that? I just opened my perfectly legally obtained deluxe edition copy of Uma Musume Pretty Derby, beginning of a new era's Blu-ray release. And I found this little audio drama CD that came with it, specifically connecting the two movies together. And would you look at that? It focuses on Admire Vega. Let's take a look, shall we? As I said, this is an audio drama, so you'll have to use your imagination for a little bit here. This will also be more plot summary than anything, since I'm sure nobody else on the planet actually listened to this thing, so bear with me. Again, the store's turn. Starts off at the 2000 Takaruza Kakina. It's Meisho Dodo and Team Opera O's first race against one another. Rapid Builder is once again mentioned by name, and Grass Wonder was present in the race as well. Fellow Uma Musume, Matakane Fukukitoru, and Stay Gold are present yet not mentioned. This was Opera O's fourth consecutive win of the year, and his third G1 victory. We cut to Admire Vega on Narita Top Road. Ayabe remarks that she was supposed to retire after the Kika show. However, Top Road is currently helping her go through rehab. She mentions that if she hadn't gone through what she had gone through, she would have lapsed into a depressive state by now. But that no longer seems to be the case. The two discuss the current state of things, as Meisho Dodo and Opera O seem to have reached their peak. Top Road has not scored a single victory this year, and full recovery for Ayabe seems a long way still. As laughing is heard in the distance, both Dodo and Opera O group up with Top Road and Ayabe, and the four start training together. Opera O gives praise to her friends, and Dodo starts feeling insecure, as she feels that not running in the classics means that she doesn't belong to be with them. And when Opera O is about to comfort her, it's actually Ayabe that interjects, and reassures Dodo that she's proved herself not only a competent racer, but a good friend as well. Off in the distance, Agnes Tachyon discusses Ayabe's recovery with Manhattan Cafe. She also seems to be pushing out learning more of Cafe's friend. Cafe doesn't budge, and seemingly regrets ever telling Tachyon about her. Top Road and Ayabe make it back to the dorm. They run into the dorm head, Fuji Kiseki, and Top Road's roommate, Jungle Pocket, who was very excited to meet Ayabe for the first time, and going as far to describe her spirit in the derby as, and I quote, totally fucking crazy. It seems that Poke really looks up to Ayabe, and tells her that she wants to become just like her and win the Japanese derby. Either out of jealousy or sadism, Fuji Kiseki drank Jungle Pocket off for a spanking after that. Huge amounts of Yuri bait come in, as Ayabe and Top Road eat lunch together, their conversation taking somewhat of an intimate turn, as Top Road tells Ayabe how much she loves to run with her, and Ayabe thinking to herself that Top Road is the only reason that she's still running in the first place. At the end of the episode, Ayabe speaks with Kuren-chan about the day she's had. Kuren-chan goes to sleep and Ayabe stays up to write in her diary. She dedicates a passage of it to her sister, that while she still wants to see her again, and wants to one day run alongside her, she understands that something like that is far away, and that rather than dwell on the past, she wants to keep giving her all for the friends she has now. A bittersweet note to end on. Well, that was quite an interesting piece of obscure Uma Musume media. I didn't intend to cover much of the audio drama material in this series, but I felt this fit right in, and was a necessary piece that completed what was missing from Road to the Top. Not only for Admire Vega's character, but to connect it to the beginning of a new era. And this being an audio-only experience, it made me realize just how good the soundtrack was for Road to the Top. It's all original music, and doesn't really reuse anything from the game. A huge upside. Ayabe having a much larger focus in this CD was all I'd wanted from it, and it's also quite nice to see much of her internal thoughts throughout. I won't be ranking this on its own, but instead I'm going to include it as part of Road to the Top, which may sound weird considering it comes with the beginning of a new era, but it just feels like it makes more sense that way. With that in mind, I'm placing Road to the Top directly below Season 2. It had awesome animation and a good story, but unfortunately didn't hit as hard as Season 2 did, despite the fact that the production was of a much higher quality. I felt as if Teo's story just outright had better material to adapt. Regardless, Road to the Top still made the most out of it, and the audio drama bonus episode was the final piece of the puzzle that it needed for a complete and cohesive story. Now with that out of the way, let's jump ahead a year later and see what all the hype is about with beginning of a new era. This is probably the most well-known and talked about piece of Uma Musume animation, at least by the time of the global release. Premiering 2 days before the Japanese Derby, on May 24th, 2024, Beginning of a New Era was released to the world, and Cygames posted this video referencing the horse in motion, the earliest form of recorded chronophotography. This is a strong motif within the movie itself, since we visually see it immediately after it starts. We get flashes of a multitude of horse girls from 1977 to 2001, and a glimpse of Special Week shown racing at the Japan Cup, going up against Monchu, the horse that BoaNE was supposed to represent. Now, with her finalized appearance, we're formally introduced to Jungle Pocket. Running late to watch the 1995 Yayo show, toast in mouth and all, she meets up with her friends, whom are all based on Jungle Pocket's real-life children. Here are the stand-ins. Ru is Oaken Bruce Lee, Mei is Tall Poppy, and Shima is Omatsu Shimashita. I want to keep this one specifically in mind for later. The hall she's running in is a real part of the Nakayama racecourse, which has its framed photos of the Satsuki Show winners. Fuji Kiseki blazes past her and activates her domain expansion, prompting Jungle Pocket's bad CG necklace to fly up. I hate this thing with a burning passion. I'll explain why later. Fuji attains victory and bows to the audience. By this point she had been undefeated her entire career, and this was her 4th victory. But unfortunately, it'll also be her last. Jungle Pocket, having bared witness to Fuji Kiseki for the first time, gets stun-locked for 6 hours. A valid response. When I watched this with the boys and Fuji Kiseki appeared on screen, shit came out her asses and we rocketed through the roof. She's inspired to start racing in the Twinkle series, and sets upon herself the goal of becoming the strongest. The opening starts, and I really like the song they have here. We're showing our 4 protagonists for the movie: Jungle Pocket, Dantsu Flame, Manhattan Cafe, and Agnes Tachyon.
まだ見たことのないスピードの向こう側へ地球をほら踏み込むていて
If you'd allow me to be a little bit irrational, this is where the movie peaked for me. Somehow, this scene more than anything is something I could only describe as perfect. I couldn't imagine it any other way, and I'm mesmerized by that. I can't stop watching it on loop, no matter what I do, and words cannot describe these feelings that swell up inside me when I see it. Have any of you felt the same way towards this scene? Please, let me know. We see Poke making her debut alongside her new trainer, Tanabe, who is based on Sakae Watanabe, the real-life trainer for Jungle Pocket and Fuji Kiseki. On top of winning her debut race at the Sapporo racecourse, she also sets a new record for the 2000 Sapporo Sansai Stakes, a G3 race. We see her getting ready for the 2000 Radio Tampahai Sansai Stakes, another G3 race you'd now likely recognize as the G1 Hopeful Stakes. It was promoted to G2 and underwent a name change in 2014, and then promoted again to G1 in 2017. Due to this, the anime treats it as G1 as usual. Here's the interesting part though. When it promoted from G3 to G2, it also underwent a course change from Hanshin to Nakayama, yet the movie selectively still has this take place in Hanshin Racecourse. So which is it? Are we abiding by the real-life history of the races, or are we going with modern iterations? Which is it, Obama? Regardless, it gives an opportunity for Poke to show off her G1 outfit, which I don't often comment on things like this, but man, I don't like this design very much. There are jobber horses with better outfits. Why does she have a cheetah print on the side of her shoes? Poke walks off and encounters Agnes Tachyon for the first time, who is about to have her second ever race. Agnes Tachyon in this movie is quite different from her usual self and game iteration. She has a different personality and a new facial design to go along with it. I'll speak more on it later, but basically game Tachyon to movie Tachyon is going from sociopath to crazy ass. Tachyon gropes Poke's thighs Okino style, causing Poke to go all cartoony. One important thing I noticed is that seemingly despite the style change, Poke's voice remains somewhat calm. It doesn't really reflect what's happening on screen. Take a listen and listen to how the emotion in the audio doesn't match the visuals.
何しやがる何なんだおめえ
There's a dissonance, and it gets pretty bad in some scenes. Makes me wonder if Poke's voice actress didn't get the memo, or wasn't properly directed on how she should sound in these scenes. In the next scene, we got a cameo from the rival trainers from the game. There's actually a huge amount of character cameos in this movie, and I didn't want to constantly stop at every point to point out every single one. But this one was pretty unique, as these two characters actually have a conversation together. The favorite for this race was Perry's team, a stand-in for Kurofune. Her name was taken from Commodore Matthew Perry, who led the arrival of the Black Steamships. A historic moment for Japan, one which Kurofune was named after, as his name translates to Black Ship. So it's a nice little loop around as a jobber name. This race has no music in it. Does Japan just not like music in their theaters or what? Road to the Top had this issue a little with the theatrical version, but it was never to this extent. A race like this should have some hype music soundtrack going on. I might be a little monkey brain, but I can see the intention. It's supposed to be cinematic and realistic and all that, but really, all that translated to for me was being quiet and boring. The lack of music is made up for with the awesome animation, and with this race I can definitely say that this movie is the best the series has ever looked so far. Agnes Tachyon wins, and Poke is forced to go back to Tanabe's roll-ass house under a bridge. This is meant to represent Watanabe's personal stable he had in Rito Training Center.
今後の鍵だと
No, don't worry. It's lemon.
Manhattan Cafe enters Agnes Tachyon's lab. I've seen some confusion online about this, but to make it clear, these two are not roommates. This is a public school lab. It's just that you see these two frequently hanging around in there. If you're curious, Tachyon's roommate is Agnes Digital, a fellow Agnes, and Cafe's roommate is Yuko Bijin, her real-life mate. Agnes Tachyon asks again about Cafe's friend. I should note that there isn't any true explanation for who that is exactly. Many people believe it to be Sunday Silence, as it's said that Manhattan Cafe looks eerily similar to him, and her friend in Musume looks eerily similar to her. Others speculate that it's meant to represent New York Cafe, Manhattan Cafe's brother who tragically died during an earthquake. It's kept mysterious and we're never given an answer. It's open to interpretation and I quite like that. The scariest things of all are the unknown and all that. Both Poke and Tachyon start watching the 2000 Arima Kinen. You can spot King Halo, Narita Top Road, Meishu Dodo, and Suramaru Tsuyoshi racing alongside Team Opera O. This is actually Tsuyoshi's final race, as illness has caught up to him, and he was unable to cross the finish line. It was also King Halo's retirement race. This was considered a bit of a revenge match, as all the jockeys deliberately formed the blockade to stop Team Opera O. The mastermind behind this act is speculated to be none other than Yutaka Take. This was Team Opera O during the peak of his career. Nobody cared about winning anymore. They just wanted to see him lose. After gravel flies and injures Opera O's eye, Ryuji Wada was distressed and didn't know what to do anymore. Nothing prepared him for something like this, so he did the only thing he can do: hold tight and let Opera O himself find a path to victory. After Meishu Dodo and Narita Top Road formed an opening for Opera O, he managed to achieve victory completely independently from his jockey. Wada was cited to be crying after the race, because he simply couldn't believe what had just happened. And I'll say, this was absolutely the most hyped scene in the movie. I hope you liked that little edit, by the way. That was Team Opera O's theme from Road to the Top that I put over that scene, which as you can guess had no music. I'm just saying, not using it there was a missed opportunity from the movie itself. Poke has a white jacket hung up in her room with the words Grey Sovereign written on it, the name of one of Jungle Pocket's ancestors. And top right side of the room she has a soccer ball, a reference to her father, Soccer Boy, whom some of you may recognize as Dick the Striker. During class, Agnes writes U equals MA squared on the window, a reference to the name of her signature in-game skill. After the lecture ends, Dantsu Flame approaches Jungle Pocket, and this is the first scene in which Dantsu Flame speaks, and it has permanently shaped her reputation in the Japanese community. Tell me if anything sticks out to you about it.
ポッケちゃん、駅前のカフェの人参おっちゃほいが美味しいって話しててさ、トレーニングの後行ってみない？
Did you notice anything? Well, she's cute, yes, but aside from that, what the hell is an ochahoy? This is an extremely obscure and local dish. Invented in 1950 at a restaurant called Singapore. The owner of the restaurant invented a dish to remember his father, who used to live in Singapore before World War II. The dish was inspired by char kway teow, a southern Chinese dish, which was popular in Southeastern Asia because of the large Chinese population there. Why does Dantsu Flame bring it up to Jungle Pocket? Well, that restaurant is in Shibata City, Niigata Prefecture, which is where Poke's trainer Watanabe was born. It is also where Dantsu Flame earned his final career victory at the 2003 Niigata Daishoten. Despite the fact she only mentions it once, the fact that this is such an esoteric thing to say, and that it's the first thing you see from her, led to many people to forever associate Ochahoy with Dantsu Flame, and vice versa. The dish itself wasn't well known to begin with. If you look up the word Ochahoy, you'll actually get many images of Dantsu Flame as well. Poke rejects the invite and goes to Takyon's lab. Dantsu follows. Tachyon is looking at an x-ray of her own foot. You can probably tell where this is going from a mile away. Tachyon insults Poke in an exceedingly high frame rate, in which Poke responds with this.
喧嘩売んなら買うぞこっちもよ。だいたい前のレースの時もわけわかんねえこと言いながら急にベタベタしやがって。つかあん時俺のこと忘れてただろ。同じクラスだっつうの。
This has to be the worst scene in terms of that tonal dissonance I mentioned before. Visually, Pocket became this wobbly cartoon monster, but her voice still sounds way too normal and toned down than it should. An exaggerated animation like this should have an exaggerated performance to go along with it. Do note that this is not to be blamed on the voice actress. Something like this is entirely the fault of the director. Jungle Pocket challenges Agnes Tachyon head-on. Tachyon accepts, but prefers to sit down while Pocket races alongside Cafe, Dantsu, and Top Road, who makes an appearance alongside her trainer Rokita. Remember Darima Keenan, he says, despite her scoring 9th place. We transition from Poke's training to her winning the 2001 G3 Kyoto Tsuchen High. In a blink and you'll miss a shot, Agnes Digital cameos behind Tachyon, who is then shown racing in the 2001 Hochi High Yayo show. Funnily enough, despite their strong association, this jobber-filled G2 race is the only time Manhattan Cafe and Agnes Tachyon have raced alongside each other. The horse in motion motif comes back as Agnes Tachyon explains her goal of reaching the limits of what an Musume can do. We're shown that Cafe is breathing heavily and seems to be in poor health. He faced health complications because he lost a significant amount of weight before the race. Digital makes another easy-to-miss appearance. As Agnes Tachyon finishes, she sees her own imaginary friend, and right before her eyes, she sees her own leg shattering. As she kneels down and grabs a hold of it, she realizes her fate, and thinks that maybe it's up to the others to see her go through. Just like Michael Jackson, Fuji Kaseki pulls a bottle of water out of thin air. She talks to Tanabe, where he hints about his dream of becoming a derby trainer, as well as his regret of not being able to do that with Fuji. The newspaper Dantsu is reading plainly calls Perry's theme the arrival of the Black Ship, referencing the real-life name once again. Fuji elaborates on the conversation she was having with Tanabe by telling Poke about their dream, and asks her directly to carry on the torch and win the Japanese derby for them. Poke accepts, then goes to challenge Tachyon once again, who is rocking the hentai protagonist haircut. They both head off to race in the 2001 Suzuki show, the first of the classics. Manhattan Cafe is absent, as she's in recovery, and directly mentions that she won't be able to race again until fall of this year. Fuji tells her that she seems to be more suited for long-distance races anyway, which was often noted of the real-life Cafe. Dantsu Flame is present in this race, and as with Cafe, this is her first and last race against Tachyon. The race starts and Poke falls behind due to a late start. At around the final stretch, the announcer starts going crazy, as Agnes Tachyon hits her final spurt, we're right to one of my favorite animation sequences from the movie. This is definitely a highlight of the whole movie, and the lack of music is actually supplemented and replaced with intense sound design and effects. There are many scenes like this, but this one is executed with real excellency, where the imagery and sound come together effectively to create a moment of sheer hype and euphoria. My previous complaints about the lack of music wouldn't exist if more of these scenes were like this.
Super excellent!
Tachyon wins her final race, and Dantsu Flame comes in second place. The streets of Japan run red as Agnes announces her hiatus from racing. Poke, Dantsu, and Cafe confront Tachyon, and in a pretty surreal and amusing scene, everyone treats Tachyon as if she just killed a puppy, when all she said was that she wanted to take a break. You know, because she's injured and has other passions. Everyone else takes it way too seriously. Tachyon is saying the most mundane and understandable thing imaginable, but the scene itself paints her as if she's going crazy and evil. It's pretty realistic when I think about it. You do one thing well enough and everyone expects you to do that thing for the rest of your life. I just hope you guys won't switch up on me if I ever stop doing Musume content. I guess Tachyon can now turn to her true passion of selling feed pics online. Godspeed! We're shown a TV compilation of people's reactions to Tachyon's retirement. One such person is Dawa Scarlet, who seems very affected. As most of you are aware, this is because she's his real-life daughter. After which we see a cameo by Shinji Saito voicing himself. If you remember my Season 3 video, he's the rapist that cameoed there too, having sexually assaulted a 20-year-old woman, which occurred directly after this movie's release. And is possibly why the Blu-ray took over a year to come out. For further context on this bastard, he's a so-called comedian from the group Jungle Pocket, which was named after our very protagonist of this movie. As far as I have seen, he only has one joke, where he says the word yes. I didn't find it particularly funny, and I don't understand the humor going on. If you ask me, this pose was just his way of practicing for the handcuffs. He actually makes an appearance in the game, believe it or not, as in Jungle Pocket's SR Speed support card, her and Tachyon make a visit to watch him perform. Jungle Pocket herself stating that this group is her favorite, and even Tachyon has a good laugh. He's also a horse owner. Remember Shima from earlier? Jungle Pocket's daughter? Well, he's the owner of the real-life Omatsu Shimashita. He cameoed in the main anime, the movie, the game itself, and they let one of his horses become an Uma Musume. With that in mind, I want to say, with all my heart, fuck this guy. Not only for what he committed, but because of the fact he was featured so prominently and cameoed so much. Side games probably wouldn't want to include cameos of random people anymore because they don't want to risk another incident like him. So there goes Shinji Saito, ruining a young woman's life, and then ruining a unique part of Uma Musume for the rest of us. Fuck you, Shinji Saito. Fuck you very much. Back to the movie, Tanabe sits down and talks with an angsty Poke. He says Tachyon probably didn't want to retire, but was promptly forced to due to circumstance. And he speaks on how he couldn't help Fuji Kiseki race again when she needed it. There's an interesting parallel between Fuji Kiseki and Agnes Tachyon. Both are sons of Sunday Salads. Both had an undefeated 4-race career, and both had to stop racing due to a bout tendon, both becoming Phantom Triple Crown horses. In many ways, Poke's rival followed in her idol's footsteps more than she ever could, down to the fault. Sound familiar? If you recall, this is exactly what happened between Kida-san Black and Duramente in Season 3, and I wish that this movie leaned into that aspect just a little bit, as the coincidences are too strong not to acknowledge in my opinion. I know they probably didn't want to reuse a plot point they did previously, but I would have liked to see how the movie could have handled something like that. This is it, the big race, the 2001 Japanese Derby. Agnes Tachyon is in the spectator stands. And remember that glass ball necklace thing that Poke had? It flashes in here. It has appeared randomly in multiple scenes before this, but this one was the worst offender. It feels like subliminal messaging. I can't tell what this thing is, and whatever it's supposed to represent isn't landing for me. Perry's team is in the lineup for this race once again. Kurofune being jockeyed by Yutaka Take around this time. And to even be allowed to compete in the Japanese Derby, Kurofune had to earn his first G1 victory at the 2001 NHK Mile Cup. Kurofune was the second favorite to win, but he would fall to 5th place after being overtaken by both Jungle Pocket and Dantsu Flame. Jungle Pocket wins, fulfilling Tanabe's dream of becoming a derby trainer, and as the announcer puts it, she ushers in the beginning of a new era, as Jungle Pocket was the first horse to win the Derby in the 21st century, after which he infamously let out a sort of war cry, which was mainly from the fact he wasn't used to how loud the audience cheering was. This is recreated in the movie.
雄たけびか
Come on, you can do better than that. Hell, I think I could do better than that. Let me try. Our main characters go to summer camp. These scenes are mostly just frolicking and showing cameos from more playable characters. Ayabi keeps talking to herself about fluffiness before bed, and is interrupted by Kurin-chan telling her to sleep. This was made into its own Pakatu video.
シルクが 28% ということ。
綾部さん、寝ますよ。
During this montage, my favorite soundtrack from the movie comes on. I'm not sure what it is about this track, but something about it just hits right. I really like it. Poke and Fuji have a nice conversation. It acts as a much-needed breather for these two, and it's a good falling action point. I also like Poke's design with her hair down. However, during this conversation, something seems to be eating on Poke's mind. Her subconsciousness telling her that she only won because Tachyon wasn't there. An insecurity so severe, it causes her to fumble the 2001 G2 Sapporo Kaiden, where she listens to fucking Air Eminem.
That's funny. I'm in the same cave looking for minors. Cause my sexual attraction to minors is major. Can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager.
Here's where it gets egregious for me though. Poke's little mental spiral arc gets way too overblown, and actively takes spotlight from what should have been Manhattan Cafe moment. The 2001 Kika show gets less than 10 seconds of screen time. The entire scene is inside Poke's head, and it's all about Poke and Tachyon. Manhattan Cafe gets nothing. I repeat, one of the members out of our jam trio gets less than 10 seconds of her race on screen during its scene. And in the post-race, she just says a few words and that's it. It especially hurts because we've barely gotten to see her race by this point, with only one scene where she was out of breath and out of shape. You gotta understand, this was huge for Manhattan Cafe. Late debut wins in the classics aren't exactly common, and Cafe himself wasn't in the greatest condition, as he just came off a losing streak and was less favorable in the ranking than most of his competitors. He was doing worse than Air Eminem!
When I was a kid, I fucking molested adults.
For someone that just scored her first G1 victory, a main character no less, has cast aside the same as the Sapporo Kid and Jobber was. Disappointing. Fuji notices that Poke's glass ball thing is scratched, probably representing how her mental state isn't the best. Though this is so unsubtle, you might as well just tattoo damaged on her forehead.
You want no beef? You don't want no beef? You don't want no beef?
Poke sits down with Fuji and talks about her fear of not becoming better than Tachyon, and the regret of not beating her. And haven't we been over this already? Like, what was the point of that speech before the derby and her overcoming her thoughts about Tachyon to focus on her own dream? This feels like the plot and by extension Poke's character regressing because they generally didn't know what to do after the Japanese derby. She just goes back to obsessing over Tachyon for no reason. Fuji puts on her racing outfit to train with Poke so that she can cheer up, showing that even around her junior, she still goes out of her way to leave that boob window open. They throw the bad CG necklace into the air and start racing. Once they're finished, Poke is over her insecurity. That's it. We sacrifice Cafe's character for this. Tanabe rides a bike that seems to be based on a Harley-Davidson Livewire. We jump to the last race of the movie, the 2001 Japan Cup, with special co-commentator Okubo Yukichi, Major Dover's trainer. I don't know why he's here specifically of all things. A few familiar faces appear in this race, including Tuyamapra O, who affirms her position as absolutely the best part of these two movies combined. We see sweep Tosha next to what seems to be her grandmother. Uniquely, Tosha is shown in her casual outfit without a hat. I had a few friends miss her cameo because of this. Tanabe puts on his glasses from the prologue for this race. Stay Gold was racing in this, but as by this point they still haven't turned him into an Musume, he's represented by one of the jobbers. Most likely this one, as she shares his position and color scheme. Interestingly enough, I don't see why they couldn't just bring back Hiniro Ryote from Season 1. Would have been the most gangster callback possible, but we don't live in that reality, unfortunately. Tachyon gets emotional and runs off into the street.
Man,
And
come on, man,
hey,
get
dog,
that
there's
pep
cars
off
driving
there.
out there.
Come on,
Hey,
somebody come
look
get
both
this,
ways.
man.
Hey,
Come
yo!
on,
Okay, that was much better than before. Damn. Jungle Pocket achieves victory at the Japan Cup, gaining his last ever G1 win. We cut to an imaginary mystery race, where our four main characters are going to race together. For the real-life counterparts though, the Kika show was the last time that Poke, Cafe, and Dantsu have raced together, and Tachyon would never come back from retirement. The four of them are then seen during the winning live, where they sing about a 7-colored prism, which would represent the combined number of G1 victories they achieved. We finish off with another good old Umapyoi, and that's where the movie ends. So, beginning of a new era. Suffice to say, I have some mixed feelings on it, but let's start with the positives. The animation was great. I think it was something that everyone can agree on. I don't have much to say, the visuals really speak for themselves. The soundtrack, when I could actually hear it, was pretty good. I liked the opening song, and the tracks during the more relaxed scenes were pretty good. It's been a while since I gave a voice acting shout out, so I'd like to give kudos to Yui Ogura for such a great performance as Manhattan Cafe. She definitely understood the assignment and pulls off that whole creepy and quiet thing perfectly. Team Opera O proves once again that she's the best part of these two movies. She steals the spotlight every time entirely uncontested. Now I'd like to talk about the pacing. It's weird. This feels like two different movies with how it's paced. The whole thing up until the Japanese derby doesn't transition well into what comes after, and the movie just kind of ends after a certain point. It never truly feels like an impact threshold has been hit. The derby was the high point of the movie, and the Japan Cup was just sort of there. Poke's arc going from obsessing over Tachyon's retirement, to accepting that she had her reasons, to later relapsing and obsessing over the fact she'll never beat her, does not flow well in my opinion. As I said, it really felt like they were running out of ideas, so they just redid what happened earlier in the movie, except the only difference is that now Tachyon wants to race again. The fact the Kika show was skipped over was a bitch move. I can't put it any other way. That moment just revealed the movie's entire bias towards Jungle Pocket and Agnes Tachyon. Nobody else matters. Road to the Top didn't have this issue. While Top Road was the central focus, it never felt like she took away anything from Ayabe or Opera O. Watching this movie from Manhattan Cafe and seeing the Kika show skip is low-key like watching Infinity War for Loki. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but throughout my entire review, the only time I actually talked about Dantsu Flame to any extent was because of a meme in, of course, her first speaking line. She gets the King Halo treatment. This is despite the fact that she was marketed heavily alongside the other three, and is in every piece of promotional material. Dantsu Flame's existence never amounted to anything. It's just Agnes Tachyon and Jungle Pocket the whole way through. And speaking of Tachyon, her depiction in this movie doesn't line up with how she is in the game, which isn't uncommon actually, as you can say the same thing about Teo. But here it's a pretty stark contrast, not only in personality but in appearance as well. This isn't exactly a negative thing, as I feel that how she was portrayed was actually in service to the story they were trying to tell, and I think it worked out pretty well. I just thought it was worth mentioning. Many people definitely overblow it though. Girl pulls a few exaggerated facial expressions, and suddenly everybody's going, "She's crazy!" I believe her popularity here is because she's hotter this way. Am I telling on myself by saying that? Probably. If you're an of-age single woman that looks like Agnes Tachyon, I just want you to know that I'd never bark like a dog. I'd howl like a wolf. Oh yeah, side note. This has nothing to do with the movie, but Agnes Tachyon and Siri Somoli had some really flattering depictions in Musume, considering the fact that they're both the biggest frauds I've ever seen. Absolute potential, men, these two, and you'll never catch me lacking when it comes on Fraud Watch. Anyways, I feel that the bias towards Tachyon and Poke really hurt the movie in the second half. If you ask me, they should have just swapped focus and used that time to give us some more of Cafe and Dantsu. I feel the latter especially had some potential as the second half protagonist. If you restructure the movie a little bit, you could have 2/3 focus on the Jam Trio, and then the final one show us Dantsu Flame as she deals with her low self-esteem, and the obstacles she has to face before capping off with her victory at the Takarazuka Kinen. I'd say it's the least that she deserves. Maybe we should talk a little about Dantsu Flame. The real Dantsu Flame. He was not a very good-looking horse. He was described as being round and having a big face, a little bit of fat that made him look unappealing as he didn't match the standard of what an ideal horse would look like. He was bought for cheap by Tetsuji Yamamoto. Remember that name. He was only chosen because Yamamoto wanted a son of Brian's time, and Dantsu Flame was the only one that fit the criteria at the time. Despite being displeased, the owner settled. Dantsu Flame was described as timid and obedient. He rested when it was time to rest, and gave his all when it was time to race. There had never been an incident of him him biting or kicking someone. A stable hand, Tagaki, said that in his 40 years of work, he had never seen a horse that required as little care as this one, even recalling the times that when the veterinarian would visit and it was time for needle injections, whereas most horses would try to run away or go on a rampage. Dantsu Flame did not, despite being just as scared as they were. All he would do is close his eyes and lean against Tagaki's chest, waiting patiently until it was over. Leading up to the Takuruzuka Kinan, Dantsu Flame had trained hard enough that he lost much of the fat he had previously and replaced it with muscle, allowing him to achieve his first and only G1 victory. Unfortunately, however, he would be forced to retire due to the very same injury that befell Agnes, Tachyon, and Fuji Kiseki. But unlike those two, he was not able to become a breeding stallion for 3 key reasons. Firstly, Sons of Brian Time had a history of complications during mating. Tanino Gimlet was a known exception. Secondly, Dantsu Flame's pedigree from his mother's side was seen as below average. Lastly, he was still ugly in the eyes of many. Due to this, Yamamoto decided to wait until Dantsu Flame recovered just enough before he would send him to perform in dirt races. He was still extremely unfit to race again, however, and performed horribly, amassing a long losing streak over the course of 2 years, to which the owner Yamamoto tried to sell him again as a riding horse, but was rejected due to being told that Dantsu Flame was in significantly worse condition than many of the other horses who had barely raced. After he was examined, it was found that Dantsu Flame was suffering from severe pneumonia, which at the time could not be treated. Rather than waste time and money to end Dantsu Flame's suffering with euthanasia, Tetsuji Yamamoto locked him up in a stable shed and left him to die. Dantsu Flame spent his last moments alone, hurt, and scared. He passed away at 7 years old. Stories like this make me irrationally angry, and I guess I just wanted something more for Dantsu Flame because of it. I just needed a good place to share it. But that's enough horse lore for now, I think. Let's get this review wrapped up. One thing about the movie is that I had better expectations for it. Not only because of what came before, but also because of how everyone else was talking about it. To my knowledge, I'm the only person to do a deep dive into the main series and OVAs, but there are many other videos that were made about this movie specifically. So I did some research and watched some. They were just your average plot summary with surface level observation, but generally speaking, I've heard nothing but praise for this film. Honestly, I feel weird because I feel like I watched a completely different movie than these people. Though I understand part of it is because YouTubers will exaggerate everything like it's the end-all be-all. Because hyping up a common consensus gets people on your side, and you get some more engagement on all that. They just worded funny, like, this movie broke me! Uma Musume changed my life! Head-ass stuff, but I did hear a lot of praise from other folk. Now, people can like a movie, but you gotta understand, I've seen people describe this thing as if it was God's gift to storytelling. I have a theory, and it's pretty presumptuous, but I think these people only watched the movie, and haven't seen Season 2 or Road to the Top. Either that, or they just consumed the whole thing through TikTok, Agnes, and funk edits. No shame in that, it was just an observation of mine. One last thing, this glass ball necklace. Poke has one, Tachyon has one. It has no real-life basis or connection, and only appears in this movie and nowhere else in the series. I actually hate this thing. It's genuinely the definition of, it insists upon itself. It constantly shows up at every turn to act as vague yet heavy-handed symbolism. Nowhere else in the franchise would I describe something as pretentious, but here we are. Alright, time for the ranking. I know I have some explaining to do, but it goes below Season 1. Wait, hold on, no!
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Hold on, man. Hold on.
Alright, I know it might look bad because it's right next to Season 3, but I like this movie. I really do. Understand that everything except Season 3 is just on different degrees of love. I still like all of them, and Season 3 is the only one I actually hold any dislike towards. So why is this movie below Season 1? And let me ask myself, is Beginning of a New Era a good movie? Yes. Would I recommend people to watch it? Also yes. If given the chance between rewatching it or Season 1, I would pick Beginning of a New Era. But, I just have such a huge soft spot for Season 1 and the B&W special that I can't explain. It shows such an early part of Musume where there were no standards set and no rules. And you get to see the early growing pains and the jank that comes along with it. I find it to be an interesting time period before the game and before this was an established franchise. I don't judge it as harshly. In contrast, Beginning of a New Era is a high-budget blockbuster that came after Season 2 and Road to the Top set the standard of what can be done in an Musume story. And in my opinion, Beginning of a New Era fell below that standard. Also, Season 1 and the B&W special had Sun Visor in them. What else could I say? No, seriously, I get that she's not real, but the absolute lack of sun visor content has been getting to me. Bros, I think I might have to take it into my own hands at this point, but we'll just have to see about that later. Anyway, this is where we finish off today's video. As always, please share it around if you learned something new, and I'll see you next time, where I will cover the Uma Musume spin-off anime. Please, look forward to it, and thank you. Thank you very much.